Welcome to the Zachrilege cast, episode 18. Recording live from this office that needs a cool name. Today is June 1st, 2015. For those new to the show, the Zachrilege cast is the one mostly true podcast and video thingy featuring me interviewing the best and brightest in the atheist slash freethinker slash pastafarian slash skeptical community. Thanks again to Nancy Drew PI for avataring it last week on the show. So after a 3-day binge argument on Twitter, I'm still wondering if it was an epic waste of time or if something good will come out of it. I am happy to report that there was a breakup, which in Twitter terms means mutual unfollowing, between me and Big Ears Guy on Twitter. I won't name him, and you'll have to look at my feed to figure it out, Zachrilege on Twitter. It's one thing to take the CJ Whirlybird route and accuse all people who don't 100% condemn atheists like Sam Harris to being fascists or commies or some other word that sounds terrible and doesn't have to be followed up with actual facts. But to turn third grade name calling is the sign of losing an intellectual argument. I thought I had a spark of understanding with this guy, but sadly he devolved into using the word fundamentalist, retard, and calling a female atheist blogger fat to back up his complete lack of a point. So today, for the show, I'd like to bring on Stephanie Jones. There's a saying that goes as follows: I'm not an athlete, but I'm an athletic supporter. Well, Stephanie is that, but for atheist podcasts and causes. So I'm going to dig out of this hole. Stephanie is the phone screener for Atheists on Air, a big supporter of Coronify Me, and knows every atheist fan page on Facebook. I dare you, test her. We met at ReasonCon 2015 because I met everyone there, and we were the only two people wearing Coronify Me shirts. Of course, mine's in the wash, but whatever. We're going to just work through this. Happy Monday, Stephanie, and thanks for getting together on short notice.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get started on finding all about you, what do you think about getting into a Twitter quote-unquote war or on Facebook? Do you ever do this with strangers, and do you think it's actually worth anybody's time?
It depends on the subject. It really does. I don't get on Twitter very much, but I've been known to go pretty far on the Facebook wars.
Well, I was, let's see, it was 3 a.m. on Friday. I'm on pain medicine because I had a gum surgery procedure. And I saw a post from Sam Harris about an ex-Muslim speaker at, I think it was the American Humanist Association. So I just retweeted it. And I also retweeted a picture of that Richard Dawkins showed of a couple of kids who were holding up massacre people who insult Islam signs. And this brought out of the woods a guy who I've argued with a few times online, who basically thinks that new atheists are just as bad as kind of ISIS. So we kind of went back and forth for a while.
I did jump in on that one a little, didn't I?
Well, it just kept going. And then there was a guy who I think was a Muslim from somewhere else in the world who was trying to say that neo-atheists, because that sounds scarier and worse, were also part of the whole Iraq invasion. And I was trying to explain that there are new atheists who are anti-theists and may want to do violent things, but no one's actually doing it or following them. And the one article he had about neo-atheists was from 2012. And I was like, ISIS may have been a thing back then, but barely. And it was just, yeah, like I said, it's probably boring the crap out of people listening to me saying it right now. So yeah, sometimes you just keep going. You want to get the last word in, or you want to win. That's the thing that I get annoyed by. You always have to I want to win this argument when it doesn't really matter. It's you just kind of want to explain when someone says something that you don't think is correct. And it's really hard to correct them when 7 people are copied and you have 140 characters. So I don't know, maybe Facebook is better for that.
I think it is. I don't Twitter much. I do think I did participate a little bit in this conversation. Not much. But I just don't Twitter. It's too short. You're never going to win. Can't convince anybody of any kind of, they're not going to change their mind. So, I mean, as far as religious people go on Twitter, I don't. I find myself arguing with more atheists about social issues than anything.
Yeah, I mean, it does bring up one thing that just because people are atheists, they don't all agree on everything.
Yeah.
And there is that kind of new atheist, but I still think the term is being used more as a bludgeon to beat people with, like Islamophobia, instead of it actually being a thing. It's like if a term is used by someone else to describe you instead of it's a term that you use to describe you, then I think it has less validity. No one calls themselves an Islamophobe, obviously, but I don't think very many people call themselves new atheists. Maybe that whole atheism plus, which I still never quite understood what it was, but I don't know.
Me too. The new atheism thing and the atheism plus, I'm an atheist. I don't use any further label than that. So
you are an atheist, so you admitted it. That's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, I will go so far as to say anti-theist at this point.
Yeah, that was another part of the argument that was interesting. The trying to convey the fact that you're not against people, but you're against ideas. But because part of this argument was about drawing Muhammad, and the person said that Muhammad was a person, that way I was mixing up the person and the religion. And it's so hard to get into the nuances of the drawing Muhammad, because I even looked up a Wikipedia article, which isn't any way to get a final assessment, but it seems like there's still a mix within Muslims themselves as to whether that is a bad thing or not. And there are many examples of Islamic art that depicts Muhammad, so it must have been okay back then. I don't know, but nuance, and Twitter is a tough one.
Definitely. Yeah, I did the Islamophobic argument over the weekend, and I went on for a little while, and then I was like, there's just no winning, and winning isn't even the object either. It's kind of just, I just want to shake some sense into some people, but they're gonna call me an Islamophobe because I don't like Islam. It's not the person, it's the idea, and it doesn't matter how many times you say it, they're still going to put those two things together. So this is where I always say, just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you're smart.
Yes, that's true. That was a Matt Dillahunty line. Like, I didn't gain any intelligence points when I became an atheist. I was just as dumb or smart as I was before. And that's true. It's not, you reach this level of kind of like that divine revelation. It's like, you don't get that. You just try to keep learning. And that's part of why I kept chatting, especially with whoever the other person was who was obviously tweeting from someone else in the world. I was kind of putting myself out there a little bit, but it was like impossible to get what the other people's points were, because they were bashing me just because I retweeted Sam Harris, as if I agree with them automatically about everything. Hey, by the way, atheists aren't like religious people in that we just follow blindly people. Now, that could happen in some cases, but
it does.
We at least think they're human beings and fallible. We at least have that. But that's just this deep thing to get started, because we want to get the story of Stephanie. We want to get everything out today that you're, of course, willing to speak about. So can you talk about your background? Like, did you grow up in a religious, if I can speak, family?
I didn't know it, but yes. My parents were, my father is Episcopalian, and my mom is a Christian. She doesn't really have any kind of label at this point that I know of, but they agreed to raise me secular. So when I was old enough that I could choose for myself, and I think I prayed one time when I was probably 10, and I kind of looked around and I thought, is anybody looking at me? Because nothing's happening. I don't see anything, and I don't hear anything, and nothing's changed, and this is stupid. So I never did it again.
So they never took you to church or even kind of told you about it?
No, only whenever they had the free dental work at the church, or like charity stuff when we needed food or something like that. That would be the only time that I've ever been to a church other than weddings.
Free dental work at the church. Okay, that's something I've not heard before. That's
Yeah, you have to go to church. They pull the bus up with the mobile dentist in there, and then you get your little teeth worked on and go about your merry way.
hmm. That might give you like a double negative feeling about church because there's a dentist involved.
Yeah.
Says the guy who's had countless hours of dental bad stuff in my life. So was there a time when you said, I am atheist? Did
Yes.
it take a while to figure out, oh, this is what I
No.
am? And
So a few years ago, I got involved with some right-wing people, and while I do lean, oh boy, I'm going to catch a lot of shit for this. I do lean right on a lot of things, but being on the inside of groups of people who are so hateful against other people for things that that they can't change, like being a homosexual or being black or having a religion they were born into. And I'm speaking to like right-wing Christian extremists who, of course, they bash Islam, which is fine. Um, but they were so extreme that it pushed me so far away from that kind of stuff. And then the Stark Monument happened. And are you aware of what that is?
yeah, was it the atheist? Was it a bench that was
Yeah.
in Florida? Anyway, you can probably describe it there and I can't.
Yeah.
At least
What
heard of it.
happened was there was a big fight about the Ten Commandments, and it ended with American atheists being able to put a monument next to the Ten Commandments. And that day, in this extremist group, they were taking pictures of certain people and just drawing like horrible photoshops, talking about going down there and pissing on the atheist monument. And that day, it was the strangest thing. That was one of the first times I ever got on Twitter, and I straight went to David Silverman and I said, "Is that you?" Because I didn't know who that was. And I've always been an atheist. I just didn't know there was a word for it. So it was very odd for me to be in the like with the right wingers. I didn't fit in there, and every once in a while I would question them, like, "Do you have proof of that?" They'd make claims that made absolutely no sense, and it was starting to peak out my little skeptic button. Eventually, it ended with me asking them to prove something that they couldn't prove and didn't want to talk about, so they just threw me out and banned me. And I did make some friends in there that were atheists, but they weren't allowed to speak about it. They didn't want to get shunned from the group.
Yeah, I could see that being an issue.
Yeah, so that's the day I went. What it would be more. That's the day I decided to be an activist and start speaking out more about the harm of religion and the people behind it.
Yeah, I remember the pictures from when that monument was there. I think was it Eric Hovind who showed up and he was like standing on it. I forget what other apologists people kind of came in and they were just yelling at people, and it was like all that was the government saying, okay, we can put a Ten Commandments statue up, but if other groups want to put something else up, they can too, otherwise it's unconstitutional. So for once the atheists called them on it and put something up.
Yeah.
And it made people pissed because they're used to having, somebody's thumb on the scale on their favor, and when it's not, it feels like something's going against them.
Yeah, and I mean, they went so far as now. Eric Hovind is from my area. His church is. I know this is a very strange area as far as religion is concerned, because there is no really. It's all Christians, hardcore Pentecostals, lots of creationists. But yeah, I'm sorry, I did the ADD moment. Going back to the monument, they were actually having people bring their dogs down there to piss on the thing and taking pictures of it and posting it. And I think somebody smashed it eventually too. So just that kind of stuff. Once that started happening, and I'm going, okay, that was my catalyst, I guess. That set me off, and boy, where am I now?
Yeah. Look at where you come. So you live in kind of the panhandle of Florida, right?
Yeah, I live in between Panama City and Pensacola.
Okay.
On the beach.
Yes, the beach, the glorious beach. I was there a couple weeks ago, and did I even try to beat Stephanie? No, because when I go on vacation, I become a hermit, and I just sit and read books and drink.
Perfect.
That's what I like to do.
Come here for.
Yeah. Some vacations you go to see the sights, basically like there's the beach, there's the ocean right there. Okay, I'm gonna look at it. Okay, and it's an excuse to drink at 9 in the morning just on vacation.
Yeah.
It's a glorious thing for me. So you kind of went 0 to 60 then. You became not just sort of an activist, but you're really in.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder for me to get my boots on the ground, as they say, to go out and actually participate in events. But I do everything I can, and I don't like being used, like maybe called an armchair activist. But I'm doing as much as I possibly can from work, home. I take, the time to, at least if I can't do anything, share things with people who can.
Well, how did you get involved with Atheists on Air?
I bothered Cash a lot. I really liked the show, and I started messaging him, and we became friends. And eventually he needed help, and I stepped up and said I would do it. And that's pretty much how it's not a complicated story, but he needed help, and it was obvious that he was getting overwhelmed. And so I offered to do anything I could to help.
So what are your duties with Atheists on Air?
As of now, admin for the Facebook page. I run the group and the other group that will not be named. I currently work with Rachel and Professor. In the past few weeks, I've been working with them to kind of bring the show back online in a form that would somewhat resemble what it used to be. It's really hard without Cash around, because he was the driver of the shit bus, and so the driver jumped out and left us trying to catch the wheel. And so it's coming back together. We had a show last night. It turned out really good. Very, very happy with it. So yeah, that's pretty much it with the AOA thing. I'm around. I help whenever I can if I'm needed. I offer to do things I can't do. I can't code. I can't fix the website, things like that. I don't know what I'm doing there.
So when's the last time anybody heard from Cash? He just kind of went silent on you?
I messaged him a few weeks ago. Didn't get much of a response. But he's around. He's very busy, but he will respond sporadically. He's very busy with work. And again, I message him just saying, "Hey, just thinking about you," and he's like, "Hey," and that's about all I got out of him. And I said, I'm just worried that making sure you're okay, and he's fine. He's just really, really busy.
Yeah, and everybody's probably missing Pastor Roy as well.
Yeah, Pastor Roy is Pastor Roy's on vacation. I do think he'll be back. Don't quote me on that, even though I just said it on video. But I have a feeling he may show back up. I'm gonna try to get. I gotta get some people. Well, there's another guy at his church that might be able to get him to at least leave a voicemail, possibly.
That's good. And as a quick catch up for people who are totally new to kind of atheist podcasts in general, Atheists on Air is a show that Cash was kind of got it rolling. Professor Stephen, I think, was involved with it early on. But Cash is almost like a kind of an atheist podcast godfather in a way, because he's pushed a lot of people to start shows. Like, he's gotten Bobby to start No Religion Required. And probably because I heard Bobby, I was like, ooh, maybe I should try this, for better or worse. So he's been involved in this, but he's had to remain anonymous because of business issues. He was behind, I think, last year's Reason Con, but couldn't be involved this year. But he got the ball rolling. And perhaps personal issues are going, but we don't really know. So, yeah, the show must go on, right?
Yeah, and that's what he always said. If you have something to say it. Get it out there. Start your own podcast. This isn't a competition. Anybody who sees it as a competition, they're just doing it for the wrong reasons. And it's something that not everybody's going to hear every single podcast or every single video show. The more of us that are out there doing it, the easier it will be for the message to get through to random different crowds and people. So yeah, there's a lot of people who started their own shows over him because he inspired them to do it.
And when I hear about other shows, I don't go, oh, no competition. I go, oh man, I don't have enough hours in the day to listen to them all, but maybe I can rotate them or stagger them or listen to segments of them, because there seems to be an atheist podcast rule that you have to be at least like 3 hours long. It's kind of a joke, but not really. Some of them are longer, and
that's long.
It's hard to put your time into it.
Yeah, a lot of people keep them around an hour. I'm hearing that I might be starting one.
I know. Oh, we'll get into that. So we're gonna, so we can break this up, I'm going to do my first live read of the show. If you want to support this show, you can go to Patreon/Zachrilege. It's spelled right below there. You should be able to figure that part out. And you can make a per episode donation to keep the show going and keep those dogs talking.
Sorry.
Head interruptions are pretty much expected during the show. So what will you get if you support this show? Well, you get absolute love and devotion if you follow in Bobby and Ashley's footsteps, because they've supported me, and donate to this show, and you will get ultimate Twitter and Facebook love. No Religion Required is their show. Please listen to them. So let's get back to the show. What is the local scene like? You mentioned that kind of in your area that it's very religious, not surprising. But are there groups around, or
no?
Is it online?
No, everything is online. I found a group in Tallahassee that's about 600 people. They're not really friendly.
Really?
Yeah. My son's beating on the door.
Uh-oh. You need a pause.
Hang on a second. Yes, I do.
Sure. Carry on. And while we're off, I might as well keep talking about the lovely and talented Bobby and Ashley. They get upset at me if I don't listen to their show right as soon as it comes out, even though it is 17 to 20 hours long. I think this week's show is about 2 hours long. They were talking about the very popular article that appeared on many atheist blogs and podcasts about how a Christian man should control his wife if she is denying sex. And if you know Ashley pretty well and you listen to her show, episode 15, you will get that she is not too happy about this Christian controlling kind of religious mindset, which is basically big fat patriarchy. So hi, how's it going? Has everybody been ether coned or knocked over the head?
There was a toothless lady knocking on my door.
Really?
She just wanted to know if I knew anything about the house next door for rent. Like I would know what, like I would have anything to do with that. So sorry about the interruption.
I hear more random crazy stuff happens in Florida than a lot of states in the country.
Yeah. Who does that? Who just knocks on people's doors like that? Yeah. It would be now.
Well, my wife works from home and she's like, if anybody knocks, I don't answer during the day because half the time it's a salesperson or it's just someone dropping off a package, UPS. So I might check it out. I think it was a couple of guys who were really well dressed, and I'm sure they're going door to door selling their wares, their spiritual wares as it is. So would you prefer it if there were like a local group, or are you okay with your, online endeavors?
So there is a small local group. It is not active. There's a group of 45 people. They're military, and they're open to civilians, but they're not active. They don't really do a lot. We have the Gulf Coast Coalition of Reason. That it's very far away from me. So I have one friend in town that's part of that group, and she's not allowed to do anything because it'll out her and her husband, and they're military, and there's a problem with that, But yeah, I'm alone down here. If I want to be around other people who are like me, I have to travel very far. Or I can just go to my computer, which is what I normally
do. That because you know the people and you feel comfortable with them. I was at a Sunday assembly this Sunday, and that's something I'm going to bring up at the very end. And it's always weird to go in person. And now that I know a few people, it's like, well, at least there are a couple people I know. Because if you go and you don't know anybody, you're really not sure what you're going to get.
Right. This is why I don't join the group meetups around here, because I don't know any of them. And they're all out of my age range, or they're just not people that I would find myself socializing with, I guess.
Yeah, they're not your people.
They're not my people,
lots
man.
of people.
Yeah, I want to see my friends. My real friends.
This question, this certain podcast host has a big reach. This is the third week in a row that I've asked this question. What's it like to be in Paul's harem? This is Paul of Coronify Me, if you didn't know already, because he's like a co-host of the show I mentioned so much.
Harem. Let's see. Paul's my friend. I work with him somewhat, but I help him run his Facebook page, and I promote his shows, and I go around plugging things like that. But most of all, Paul's my friend, and I talk to him probably every day. He's a unique person.
Yeah.
Taught me a lot about
when he lived closer, or have you just gotten to know him? Because I don't know how long he's been in the West Coast.
No, when I first met Paul through a gun debate on Twitter, and we ended up blocking each other. And when we ran into each other later, on Facebook, everybody's like, "Oh, what's your Twitter handle?" All of a sudden, I see this thing pop up, and it's like, "Ooh." He goes, "You blocked me." I'm like, "Uh-oh."
It's like feud in a romantic comedy almost,
I know.
They hate each other, but they learn to work together for the greater good.
Yeah, it turned out we have a lot more in common. Well, I've evolved as a person. I'm not a piece of shit anymore. And I used to be a horrible person. So I'm still a horrible person to the people who deserve it. But so yeah, I've changed my focus on helping people instead of being an asshole to people. That's pretty much what I used to do.
Yeah, I don't like the automatic dismissive of someone just because they're in a certain group. But occasionally you reach a certain point with someone, you're like, we're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
But it'd be better to help than to not. Maybe you can educate someone a little. Maybe they can educate you. Hey, that's not
Yeah.
surprising. So it
And
sounds
the
like
thing about
you go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, okay.
Got
The thing about Twitter wars, like we were talking about before, at some point, well, basically I got my ass handed to me and I was like, all right, block. So Paul is not someone you want to argue with. Like, you do not want to be on the other side of his argument. It's very rare that you're going to win. Um, so
He has opinions, that's for sure. He's
yeah, and that's what I
strong.
love about the guy. Not afraid to say it, and there needs to be more people like that out there that are willing to say things that people aren't going to like, regardless of the backlash. Or so and so doesn't like me because I said this. Well, so what? That's a good rule to live by. You need to say what you want to say, and if people don't like it, tough shit, honestly.
Yeah, you get to a certain point where you're like, do I really want everybody to like me? And if they all like
Exactly.
me, they probably can't know that much about me because there's going to be something they're not going to like. If you get
Yeah.
deep enough, there's got to be something even innocent that the person, oh man, you chew gum? Ugh, I hate gum.
Yeah, I just love that show, and I want to see it. I want to see it continue. It's helping. It's helping people, and the numbers I'm not sure about, but it even just as like even me and you. I assume you're a fan of the show.
That's the only podcast I actually donate to.
Me
I think
too.
I might donate to Dogma Debate because I set it up a long time ago, and I gotta see if that's a recurring thing. But I always get the emails from Patreon about Coronify Me, and it's like I don't always have time to listen to every minute of every show, and I
Yeah.
prefer the interviews over the him reading the Quran. I got the point, like, oh yeah, it's another holy book. There's some shows I really like, but if they start reading a holy book, I'm like, this is bad.
I love the Quran reading. I really do, because that's when he gets to piss off like the most.
Yeah.
Just the way it's just perfect. I love it. But everybody has their thing about that show.
It's one of those crazy things when atheists seem to know a holy book better than the followers, and it's like, you're following this book, you should know. Like, if you believe in God and you think God exists, you should know every pimple on his ass. You should know every detail about, not just, oh, it's vague. It's like, no, you should. I mean, if it's a part of reality, then get in touch with it. I don't know. So you would think that Paul would notice if I showed up to meet him dressed in a burqa, like those soldiers that escaped ISIS that were actually wearing drag burqa so they wouldn't be caught.
I think he's on high alert for that.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't. Any kind of head covering rushing at him.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I definitely wouldn't.
So how did you get to become the page whisperer on Facebook? You seem to know all these pages, and you maintain, it seems, a bunch of skeptic, atheist type pages.
I do. It's because I have no life. And so, yeah, once you have children and you get a little older and you're trapped in the house, you need an outlet. So I took to socializing. So my big thing, what started it, was when I started listening to podcasts. I'm just, these are just people. So I would just find these people who they are and be like, hey, I like your show, and I'd make friends with them. And that's, the more you push, you make friends with people, and then eventually they're going to need some kind of help, once they get too busy. But yeah, the page whisperer, I like that one. I really do.
Yeah, stick with that.
Yeah.
Stick with that name. Yeah, I've found out, and this is another reason why I started this show, is just everybody's really friendly. And instead of me talking about people behind their backs, it's like, hey, have them on the show and actually let them talk for themselves. because that's a lot more interesting than me just blabbing alone.
Yeah, I'm put in a position where I'm talking about people, and it's a little awkward, just a little bit, but I can handle it, I think.
You didn't talk nearly as much smack as you could have.
Oh no, I don't know. I don't know any smack about people. I know nothing bad about anyone. I know everything. I'm everywhere. That's why I do is, yes, I have no life. I spend all of my time on Facebook. Um, but when it comes to adminning groups and pages, you've seen this person come through before. You know they're only going to come through so they can start a fight, or what do they call them? Trolls.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I am in a lot of groups. I admin several, and it's just because I'm kind of an asshole, and I can recognize people when they're starting to pull their crap. They're whatever it is they do, they want to post something that's going to get everybody chatting. I'm pretty good at recognizing that and getting rid of them if I have to, or setting them straight, which is what I normally do. And then they run away.
Yeah, you don't put up with any crap.
No.
That's what I think you have to be that way. You can't. I don't be everybody's friend. You're like, nope, this person doesn't fit.
No, and the more you socialize with these people, you find out that they're not who they claim to be. Some of them are horrific people, and that's kind of, I bank it when I see certain people that do, and I will never say any names, but there are certain people out there that I would never associate myself with, famous, not famous, that that kind of stuff. I try to distance myself away from any kind of person who is doing things for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that reminds me of the big ear guy I was arguing with last week. It's obvious we can go no further, so I'm going to do one more live read here. I found out about the big Sunday Assembly conference that was in Atlanta about 24 hours before it happened, so I really wasn't able to attend, plus I was drooling on my couch. But I will not fall prey to the same issue when the Atheist Alliance of America conference comes to Atlanta on October 18th. Speakers will include J.T. Eberhard, Mendice Thomas, Herb Silverman, Dave Silverman, Greta Christina, and more. I'm going to include the link in the show notes, trying to get people to sign up. I get to go to this conference, which is kind of nice to get to meet up with other podcasters, and it's great because it's in Atlanta, and just want people to show up because these things are a lot of fun, and sometimes the non-speaking part can be the most fun of the show. That's what's so cool about it. So Stephanie, we got to ask, because this is where we met. How was your experience at Hickory, and are you still upset at me because I turned down your generous Cheerwine offer?
You didn't take my Cheerwine. That was not even, I stopped and got that for you.
It wasn't beer.
I brought the
Plus I forgot.
I brought Jim Beam to mix with it.
Ooh, no.
It would have been good.
I was only safe, relatively speaking, because I stuck with beer. That's the only reason why I didn't end up on my bed moaning for the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I didn't get in too much trouble there. You were the first person we saw when we got there. And you were 2 doors down from my room.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I thought it'd be, neighborly to go stick notes on your door. But,
yeah.
ReasonCon was, so I got a little drink. I went to drinking on Friday night and slept through all the talks, which is fine. I heard they were great. But I stayed out of trouble for the most part. I can't say all the way, but it was a wild weekend.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy because I had that moment where I was like, well, I just drove here and it's 2 p.m. And then I saw the Bill and Susie posted on Facebook, come to our room. And they're like, what room are you in? And then, it began.
Yeah.
I was
We all went over there.
drinking beer in their room at 2:30, and then we had the dinner. But during dinner, I would come down with like beers in my pockets and just hand them to people.
Yeah.
That's how I get to meet a few people that handed them beers, because I'm like, I'm going to bring beers from Atlanta, and people can bring beers from other parts of the country. Although it ended up being, I think I just drank my beer.
Yeah. The Friday night thing wasn't. Well, I sat at a table full of goofballs, so
There were non-goofballs attending this.
No, it was fun, but I thought we were going to get kicked out because they were throwing paper footballs and playing, it was like high school cafeteria stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, stop. But of course I overreacted like usual. But the street preacher was interesting. Did you hear about him?
I missed that. I remembered Bobby bringing him up later, and I heard the audio later. That was so funny because I think they talked to some locals about that, and like, oh, that guy comes there all the time. And he was like, I drove down to visit my brother. I'm like, okay, so you drove down to visit your brother in North Carolina, and then you pulled out your giant Bible and started preaching at people, because that's just what people do when they come to a new town, is they just pull up to a conference of people who don't agree with you and start yelling at them poorly, because Bobby pretty much crushed him on the Bible.
Yeah, he did. I listened to that a little ways after, maybe a couple weeks after it happened. But I confronted the street preacher myself. He was, well, I guess he must have been awake already when he started, but he was outside of our room, and I could hear him in my room, and I was tired and sleeping. So I promptly stomped down there in my pajamas. Well, I think I put shoes on, and I started screaming at him to shut the fuck up. That I could hear him in my room, and I needed him to be quiet. And I was not nice about it. I did not care about arguing the Bible or anything he had to say. I just wanted him to be quiet. And he stuck his crony after me, and he quieted down after that for a little while.
Yeah, I think that was part of Bobby, or maybe it was Matthew the Apostle, who's like, so can we come to your church and yell at you? Because that doesn't really happen, does it? It's like the one secular big event that happens. I mean, it's Hickory, North Carolina, everybody. I don't think there are 50,000 people in the city. Could be wrong on that, but I heard the organizers say they didn't want to go to Asheville because it was too big, and Asheville probably doesn't have 100,000 people. So this is a small town in the South. So it's what to be expected. We went to lunch, and the minivan with the Christian flag, which I don't think I'd ever seen before. I was like, oh, there's a Christian flag? They have a flag? Cute. We waved at them, they waved back, and that was really all the interaction I had.
Yeah, doing things in that town was very strange, because everywhere I went, it felt like people were staring, and it's like they could tell there was something off.
Wearing shirts like this here,
yeah. Or
actually worse than that.
My shirt. I'm wearing my Star Talk shirt.
Okay.
So, yeah, but we had I had a friend with me who, yes, my Star Talk shirt, decided to wear a shirt that said United Atheists of America when we were going to like a big chain restaurant, and that went over really well. We couldn't figure out why everybody was staring at us, and I was like, oh, man.
Well, there was that aspect, and the fact that we went with the Doblers in a van, and there were about 20 of us trying to get a table at a restaurant, and it was like prom night too, so no way. We ended up going to Golden Corral, and I saw a couple people wearing like Duck Commander shirts, and I'm like, I wonder if they're gonna look at the shirts people are wearing, but they, everybody's too busy drinking directly out of the chocolate fountain to actually pay attention to what we were. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Susie. Susie is a thing for the chocolate fountain, which is great.
We have a Golden Corral here. We don't go there. It's nasty.
There's so much food there, but yeah, it's all like, oh man.
Yeah,
I have no idea what this really is.
Hey, it's good if hey, if you're hungry, good to go.
We probably if this happens next year, it's almost like they might as well just order a bunch of pizzas at dinner time, as they did again at, was it 1 in the morning? It was sometime when the drunk casting, which didn't totally materialize. Yeah, you got bumped there. You weren't even like grabbing people for Perez or Steven, huh? At that night.
Oh yeah, I've been. My job has been eliminated.
Oh no.
No, I was really drunk, so I was socializing, but when we couldn't get internet, so we waited for everybody else to do their thing, and by the time that was over with, it was so late that I was off wanting to socialize. But yeah, with the dinner, I think Smalley showed up with a bunch of pizzas at like midnight and fed everyone.
Yeah, we were outside and it was like people were gathering money and that was that. But I feel bad because I'd like to have Professor Steven on this show sometime, but the only time I've talked to him, I've been really drunk. But I think everybody, including him, was drunk when we did that.
Oh yeah, but
small version of his show, and I could barely complete a thought, so that was good.
You were really, really drunk. I thought that was hilarious.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like,
you're welcome.
It might have been the tops there. Well, he made a question about kind of biblical type logic, and I just don't ever talk about it, so it wasn't at the top of my head. And if it wasn't at the top of my head, there was no chance I was getting it. So I was a lost cause there. I couldn't debate a Christian if I was really drunk. That's something I learned that weekend.
Well, I'm known for only being able to debate when I'm drunk.
So it's like your superpower. I like that.
Yeah, it's my liquid fuel, my liquid balls. I get a little bit of drink in me, and I start getting a little bit feisty and trying to, argue with people. Kind of what I do sometimes.
My liquid balls.
Calm down.
That's good. That'd be like an energy drink, really. Someone needs to come up with that right now. Patent that sucker, or you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose out. So you're somebody who lives near the beach, but I hear that you hate the beach. What's that all about?
There's people there that don't live here. The tourists drive me crazy. No. So there's places that we can go if we need to. Literally across the street from my house, I can drop my kayak in the water and float on out to the bay. But as far as where the tourists go, that's the last place you ever want to be. It's like Orlando. So the locals, for the most part, we have our special places that we go. But I haven't been to the beach in a very long time.
That's just sad. I mean, I really like it the times I've gone when it's like right before Memorial Day or right after Labor Day, because nobody's there. It's like after there's some kind of tropical storm or something hit. It's not been as crazy as before. But once you get to that window of Memorial Day, Labor Day, the prices go up and tons of people show up.
Yeah, gas went up 50 cents a gallon like the day before Memorial Day. So that's when you know it's season. Yeah, I lost what I was going to say. I have ADD, just so you know.
The beach is awesome.
Oh, because I work at the freaking beach. That's why. I don't want to go there anymore because my job is working out there with the pools and in the tourist area and at the beach. Mostly every Friday, I'm on 30A, which is a big tourist destination. I want to pull my hair out and get out of there as fast as I can possibly go. And hopefully I will not run over any tourists on bikes on the way out. So yeah, that's my main thing with the tourism stuff around here. It's my job. I don't want to go there ever if I can help it.
Weird motorized cart things that people like rent. That I'm like, that'd be really easy to hit one of those people because it's kind of low. It's hard to see. It doesn't go very fast.
They don't know what they're doing. They don't pay attention. They don't care. They cross on the crosswalks, but they don't look both ways. Just because they're in the crosswalk doesn't mean someone's going to stop. They just leave their brains at home. It drives me nuts.
Next time I go, I should talk to you about local restaurants to go because It was like a family trip, and they wanted to go to all the places that had the webcams and the $20 drinks and stuff like that. And
Oh, wow.
we went to Orange Beach, and there's a place across the street from where we went called Dusty's, which is this little hole-in-the-wall shack place. But they had oysters, which our wife likes. I don't really like seafood. And they had like a steak sandwich. It was perfectly fine, good beer selection. It was relatively cheap, and we could walk there. And we
Yeah.
went to like a medium-priced restaurant. It was just like, there wasn't nothing that special.
Nothing
So
special. No, they're all the
a lot of
same.
it's to suck in the tourists and get them there and get the pictures. And because we went to like the Pineapple Willie's, and half of that place was the t-shirt store, and
Yeah.
you know what to expect when you get in there. So
Yeah.
I had a bucket of ribs. What's wrong with that? Who can
No
hate on a
way.
bucket of ribs?
A whole bucket? Awesome.
Yeah,
And
you don't
beer.
get, there's no such thing as small portions either, but that's most restaurants, I think, what it comes down
Maybe.
to.
Yeah, there's some very unique places here. Now I'll direct you towards them when you come back, and I
Okay.
won't interfere with your family time.
We'll get back one of these times.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know, maybe next year, but we'll see. But I mean, because I lived in Nashville for a while, family would go there in the summer, and because we're in Atlanta, it's 5-6 hours, and I like the beach even better. And we've been to Hawaii. The beach itself, I think I still like the white sand beach of the Gulf Coast,
Yeah.
minus the occasional, oil spill.
What oil spill? What are you talking about?
Those are my favorite things. There's a big billboard sign about fraudulent claims against BP. I'm like, really, BP? You're putting money up for that?
We all got money. Even I got money. It wasn't a fraudulent claim, but I worked in the tourist industry.
I'm sure there's some people who did that.
Oh yeah, there's people
I can't
in jail.
imagine it's that big of a percentage of the total money they had to put out.
No, but they are going after people now, 5 years later or whatever.
It's probably not in the news very much anymore.
No.
Because that's my favorite. I posted it online. I went to a BP gas station. It was like, you are responsible for spills, real big sign. I'm like, oh, that's great. That is so awesome. Unless you have a lot of money and you destroy an ecosystem. It's okay.
Yeah, that was a tough time around here. I saw the damage firsthand. It wasn't as bad on this side of the Gulf Coast as it was over towards Texas, but it was bad. I mean, I would say it scared us really bad. Our seafood, our dolphins are dying. Our oysters suck. It's like it's bad now. So now we have to get oysters from Texas. Boo.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know if it's directly related to it, but I think it was overfishing. But Texas oysters are not the same.
Anytime you depend on Texas for anything, I mean, come on.
Ooh, yeah.
You get your textbooks from there, so you should get your oysters from there.
Hey, I'll be coming up to Atlanta in a couple months, 2 months, for a concert.
What's the concert?
Faith No More.
Oh yeah, they're kind of getting back together.
No,
new album.
They're just doing one tour. Yeah.
I don't blame them.
No,
they were like a heavy rotation when I was in high school. That was one of those bands. And then they had like the big hit, and then they had the next album that nobody got, and then that was kind of the end of it for them.
They're the best band ever.
The best.
No,
I mean.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll be up there sometime.
ATL, we got the crew here. We got quite a few.
Yeah.
There's still a few people who I met like at ReasonCon I still haven't met here, and a few that were at ReasonCon that I may not have met, but I know they're here. I see them on Facebook, like Teody and Hugh Man. Well, I met him, and the host of the Forbidden Fruit show, whose name I can't remember right now.
Oh yeah, Ken. He lives there.
Ken the Cookie Man. Come on, it's a catchy name like that.
Cookies.
Yeah.
Good.
That's a good one. Although I think if I get anything for this show, it's definitely going to be a beer opener or a beer koozie, because everybody has T-shirts. You got to have something unique, or a temporary tattoo. I was thinking of that. Get like
I
a
have some temporary tattoos.
tattoo and put it like on your neck. Sacrilege cast forever.
Yeah, forever.
I will admit I was disappointed that I only saw 2 cross back tattoos while I was in. I thought I'd see more at the beach.
Oh,
That's
really?
that's my favorite because that's like 3 lines before stone gay people in Leviticus, I think, or Deuteronomy, one of
Oh,
those books that don't have a tattoo thing. And
the people
people,
who come here to visit are the ones you won't see it on them. It's the people who live here
mm,
that have that crap. And we don't go to the beach during tourist season. If we do, we go on the north side. Um, but yeah, if you go, yeah, there's plenty of people who have all kinds of Leviticus tattoos all over them, with the hating of the homosexuality and all that stuff. That they don't they don't know. I don't bother to say anything.
I mean, really, that book hates literally like everything. It's like if you cut
Yeah,
your hair, if you go to church 30 days after having a boy, if you have mixed fabrics, if you eat shellfish, they're like 50 things. And it's not even, it's like if a man lays with a man kind of thing, you know?
yeah.
So it's not specific, but then again, what Holy Book is really when it comes
I
down
gave
to
up on that one.
it. So before we call it a show, this is your opportunity to ask me anything. So go
Oh,
for it.
geez, I wasn't aware I was gonna get to do that. Um,
That's my favorite part of this. Nobody prepares. Nobody knows what they've got in front
you
of
put me
them,
on the spot. I'm not
which is,
creative.
yeah, well,
All right.
all
Um,
right.
favorite. What's your? You've probably been asked this. What's your favorite band? What kind of music do you listen to, and what's your favorite band? Let's put it that way.
Kind of all over the place. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of the bands that I was listening to, like in the early '90s. Like I was listening to, was it the first popular Green Day album, and like early Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Red Hot Chili Peppers, and some stuff that I hadn't listened to in like a decade. Like if you call my 2 favorite bands, you may or may not have heard of one of them. They Might Be Giants. I really like,
Mm-hmm.
and a group from Canada called Blue Rodeo, and they both are basically duos, and they've been together for like 30 years, and just enjoy the crazy wordplay of They Might Be Giants. And the Blue Rodeo is kind of like a folky group out of Canada that almost sort of had a hit in like the 80s, but then never really. I mean, they've done well in Canada, and they show up occasionally in Atlanta to like a 500 seat place, and it's really cool to see them. But those are kind of the 2. But yeah, Faith No More was big, like Jane's Addiction, a lot of that stuff in the early '90s. I just don't listen to a ton of new stuff now.
I saw a study on that recently about how you kind of stop liking new music at a certain age. I don't know how old you are, but I assume we're probably around the same age. If you're talking
41.
about I'm not quite that old. You're kind of old.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
just,
kind of.
I'm just messing with you. Yeah, because I just recently started listening to some newer music, and by newer I mean things that came out in 2002. So I understand that.
Well, you used to go to like a record store, and whatever was new, you'd pick it up. Or like my brother brought the Red Hot Chili Peppers CD, and I had to buy it immediately. And then you would sometimes just grab something randomly. Like I grabbed the Meat Puppets because there was a Kurt Cobain quote saying how much he liked them, and
Yeah,
that was that. So
and they
yeah,
weren't
I mean,
bad.
you might hear stuff on the radio that you liked, but yeah, some bands like Green Day, I was like, oh yeah, they kind of had a renaissance 5 or 10 years ago, but it's like after that first and second album, I just forgot about them. I forgot about Pearl Jam after their third album, I think, and I think
Yeah,
a lot of other people did too. So yeah, it
me
does
too.
it does come and go.
Yeah.
My wife and I are
Sorry, I
big
couldn't
Foo
get too
Fighters
creative
fan,
on that question.
so that's a. I don't think I've talked about music, so there you go. You got one on me.
Did I? Yeah.
So how can people find you on the internet, on the Twitters, on the Facebooks, whatever groups you can talk about? And
Um, if you're watching this show or listening to it, you probably have mutual friends with me. So hopefully that'll change for you in the future, Zach. Um, but my name is Stephanie Jones. You just type my name in and it will pop up with a picture of me and Stephen Colbert eating popcorn. Because wherever I go, you need to bring some popcorn.
Yes, you do. It's always a show.
And yeah, and my Twitter is at Miss Stephanie. It's spelled with as knee, like the knee of your part of your body. Not hard to find there either. You can just find wherever you find Corona, find me. That's where you'll find me. Pretty much. I don't play on Twitter that much.
Nearby.
Only with you and Paul.
Yeah, he's one of the few. Like when it comes to Twitter, it seems like I'm finding more international people, and when it comes to Americans, Facebook. So it's kind of sucked me back into Facebook. Some of these groups that I've been on, I don't post on my main account terribly often, and now I'm getting an interesting mix of people I knew 10 years ago, and it's a new group of friends. So everybody's going to mix and see how it goes.
Awesome. So
in closing, I attended a giant Sunday assembly meeting in Atlanta on Sunday. Shockingly, it was on Sunday. This has been going on for about a year and a half. The Sunday assembly was created by a couple of Brits trying to create kind of the church feel for non-believers. And it's a shockingly positive meeting as far as atheist meetings go, celebrating life, featuring more sing-alongs than an episode of Glee, and really cheery local hosts in Christy and Steven. So I went with my local friend Hugh Mann, who I hope to get on a future audio-only episode of the show. It's good to be among like-minded people, and it's way better than arguing with people on Twitter who won't even meet you 10% of the way. So if you want to find me, you can check Zachrilege Cast. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, and of course on this here YouTube page. Go to Zachrilege on Twitter. You see how to spell it right there below me. Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook. Just search and you'll find it. And Zachrilege.cast@gmail.com if you want to email me. If you go to iTunes and give me a 5-star review, I will give you some follow Friday love on Twitter or a shout out on the Facebook page, or both. So thank you for listening and watching. I'll be back next week with someone cool. I've yet to confirm interviews, but we will get new people on here and keep you guessing. So stay skeptical, everyone, and thanks again, Stephanie, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Zach.
And we will close with the...